Going live. All right, good afternoon, you filthy apes. Welcome to AMC and ADD, where we buy, hold, and screw the hedgy. Today I have a special guest. He's one of our very own subscribers to the channel, Reddit user parkair1501. Welcome to the show, Parkair.
Hey, thank you. I really do appreciate this opportunity. Spend the next, you know, possible couple hours with you and explain what I have to share.
Absolutely. I'm going to, since I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna post up your Reddit account if you don't mind. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out who you are, but on the live stream, I think I'm gonna post it up there. So if somebody wants to see some of the chartings that you've got, they can go ahead and check it out themselves. So, anyways, moving on. Tell us about yourself. What are you willing? Just tell what you're willing to disclose, of course.
I got a pretty good milestone birthday here in the next couple months, or next year, early next year, turning 40. Uh, Currently going to college for business. I should be finished up with a business management degree by the end of next year, and then look to turn that fifth year into an MBA. And I'm actually in a current management role and just seeing how far that can take me up the food chain and you know barring how AMC turns out, might not have to pursue that in corporate life and work independently on our own startup or something along the lines of that. I think that's a goal.
Yeah, I'm 45 years old. I've come so close to finishing a 2-year degree several times, and I've actually got probably a good 4 years worth of college credits to my name, and it's just that because I've done so much of it in different portions of my life, they all expire. What's probably like the number one thing that, like as an older guy yourself, is it difficult going back to school? Do you find it like kind of, is it weird?
I'm lucky that the degree that I am is an all online degree program, and the university I'm going to, the faculty is amazing to work with. Communicating that back, it was different at first and somewhat intimidating, I guess. But my wife, she has 4 degrees herself, so
Wow.
yeah, so she's the one. She's got two PhDs, and she's the one that kind of pushes me to further my education because I have a certification. I've worked in the wind turbine industry, installing wind turbines and commissioning, servicing all across the country, to installing 5-axis CNC machines, and so I've done a lot in the last 10, 15 years.
That's really cool. Well, how did you find your way into buying AMC and becoming a part of the ape movement?
You know, early on, it was some of the things that I was seeing. Uh, what do you want to say? When after AMC and GME and uh, BlackBerry and Nokia and all those had those short squeezes, and the market essentially was controlled. Limiting the buy option and those major stocks. Um, if that doesn't send red flags that something's going on, you should probably look into it. So after looking into these stocks and realizing that the hedges have never covered and the short interest is still high, um, that has to be a buying opportunity. At least the more and more that we went on and we learned that they haven't covered, and everything they did was to stop something that was even bigger. And over the last 5, 6 months, we've learned that story.
Hmm.
But coming across and becoming what do you want to say, an ape? I've been in since early to mid March. I wasn't in the originals back in January and buying in, even though I was buying other stock. It just these were not on my radar. Uh, and uh, to get into it was obviously just realizing that there were plays, and I mean they turned into huge plays in early May, and we're still riding that wave. and I'm sure many of us could have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, when it topped out at a little over 72 with AMC and GME being at the 4 or 500 range early in January. And you know, GME is a little more controlled, I think, but we're uh, we're looking pretty good.
I tend to think with GME, the volume is what makes the big difference. With a lot lower volume, it makes it, I guess, like maybe more controlled or easier to define what's happening. With such a large volume in AMC, I feel like uh, it's a much bigger party.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I got, and we'll get into it. I got some DD that I want to show you that you guys might actually be like, okay, there's something that these setups we can look for in the past for future setups, and I'm excited to show that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any hobbies, like anything that you find most you spend a lot of your time kind of doing besides AMC?
Uh, you know, uh, Other than family and work and school, I do like to 3D print and design. You know, uh, CAD design.
Hmm.
Um, Everything from and enjoy anything outdoors, just golfing, anything sports wise.
Oh
So
man, I love golfing.
yeah, yeah. So
There's something about
scratch
getting out
golfer.
there. Yeah, me too. There's something about. Oh,
Lots of
you're a
fun.
scratch golfer?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Wow, wow.
yeah.
There's something
So
about getting out there and just enjoying hitting this little ball in nature. I don't know how else to
oh
explain it.
yeah.
It's just you get out there and it's just so nice to just nice green grass everywhere. I mean, I even enjoy it in the wintertime when the grass is dead, but I mean, it's real funny. I'm an extreme golfer. I the
Mhm.
days that I love golfing the most are the days where the weather's the worst. And it just I love it. I just love the challenge of trying to put this little tiny ball in a hole that's like 300 to 400, maybe even 500 yards away from where you started from, and 4 to 5 hits, 3 to 5 hits, basically. But yeah, I do love some
That
golf.
that is a great mindset to have in those difficult and adverse conditions or times. And I can kind of see that where even on these down days, when you're calling out, even these down days and manipulated days, whatever we want to call them, I can hear just hey, we're just we know what we're doing, what our game plan is. We're just out here enjoying this because we know what the end result's going to be. So I can get that. I can see that with you.
And it makes you stronger too, right? As a golf player, if you can beat up 30-mile-an-hour winds, then imagine how sweet it is when you have zero wind and you're out there playing with some really good
Oh
golfers.
yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the worst experiences I ever had with the wind though is I had I couldn't have been more than maybe 50 yards away from the green, and I hit a pitching wedge to get up there. It was just a nice little chip up there, and um, I watched the ball hit the peak of its height and then just start blowing back, and it almost nearly landed right where I was standing. So
Yeah, yeah.
that was just kind of one
I,
of
I,
those things where I
I,
was like, "Holy cow!"
I've played in those days, and yeah, it is grueling.
Yeah.
It can be grueling.
Well, it's great to get to know you a little bit better, Parker. Thanks for sharing your history. Um, so let's move right along and get into the meat of what you have to share today. I want to preface before we move forward that nothing that's said here is financial advice by either of us, and it's important that everyone follow pretty much the rule of investing, which is to never buy more than you can afford to lose. So having said that, Parker, can you describe or show the process in which you look for trends? Oh, wait. Before you start,
Yeah,
we kind of talked about this before. I'm gonna run behind me. I'm gonna go grab a beer out of my fridge, and I'm gonna enjoy a beer while you explain what you're gonna do here. So give me just one second. I probably should have had the beer pre-grabbed, but I forgot to grab it real quick, and so give me just 1 minute. I'll be right back and with that beer. Hold on one second.
sounds good. Yep.
Mental notes to self: do not make your guest wait for you to get a beer. Next time, I will have a beer on hand. But we got to make
You're
this
right about that.
relaxed. We're gonna make this
Yep.
relaxed. We're gonna grab beers and so, anyways, go ahead. Go ahead and describe your charting. We've got your chart pulled up here. Your screen is showing. What you got?
Okay. All right. So, for those of you that are not familiar, the the chart. Uh, what do you want to say? Application I'm using on the website is known as Trading View. That is tradingview.com. I have I believe the second from the highest subscription available, which allows I think up to like 10 saved charts. Uh, so my low chart here,
If
you
John
can
was,
name your
I
charts.
gotta tell you, if John was here, he would be extremely. He'd be like, "See, Casey, I told you, I told you." If you don't know, John's one
Uh,
of the admins.
okay. Well, I mean, I'm willing to. I'm always trying to learn as much as I can with this and see how I can use it because these are all tools that we can use. I'm not an expert by any means, and I don't work on Wall Street. And for me, my investment is just extra money outside of what isn't allocated to bills. It's fun money. It's I'm sitting on a nice little nest egg, and my wife's always like, "Oh, you should have sold when it was 72," and I'm like, "No, that's not why we're in this." And uh, you know, so trading view, uh, as you see right now, I have two screens up here. You can have many different layouts. I guess I'll be dragging some of these screens over into here, and they could be different. You'll see me open them up, and I'll try to explain and elaborate because the nice thing I like about this is during active hours when the market is open. Um, Depending on what market you're on, and you can pay for it. Uh, and the settings, all- there's tons of just options that you can, activate, turn on, and use at your discretion. Um, this stock is AMC. I can hide a lot of this information that may seem like it's in the way. Um, so just trying to get just a little explanation as to what I'm looking at. Uh, so the easiest way that I found looking at a lot of these charts is in the line uh, method. I do like to look at the charts and either a hollow candle. Hollow candles really just tell me if the volume, if there's a lot of volume within them because they'll vary in size. I know other individuals like the Heikiashi just because the pattern, the size is different. They aren't hollow, which a lot of times they don't show those gaps as strong. So so your candles are extremely important to you. If you're a beginner looking to get into trading, I suggest getting a book, find someone on YouTube, learn all about particular patterns to pay attention. I know you, Casey, you do a great job. I think you and I are kind of similar on, identifying certain patterns, whether they're, double bottoms or wedges, flags. The big thing, the more and more you do trade, I always feel like there is that adage. Sometimes less is more, but when it comes to trading, there's not a perfect. What do I say? Not there's no one indicator out there or multiple indicators out there that says, "Hey, this is a perfect time to get in a trade." We all know that
Hmm.
because if there was something out there, we'd be millionaires.
Sure.
You know. So, some of the things that I've learned with certain setups that and I feel like I've came across a lot of indicators that suit certain patterns that I look for, and I've learned to get in at opportune times. And I think that's the whole thing is when to get in, when to get out. Right?
Mm.
Everyone like we don't know when it's going to top out. We don't know if this is an opportune time, but your indicators in understanding these extra lines in here, and if they don't make sense, I can. or if they're difficult to see. Um, a lot of these are just moving averages. That's the beauty about trading view. So I can have this section just be like moving averages, and some of them, the cycles are, I have from a 5-day, 10-day, 50-day, 21-day, 100, 200, 500. So this will pretty much tell me based on that time frame, uh, how is that, which way is that movement trending,
Mm,
and depending on the severity of it, um, is a good time to buy. And we always have like the golden crosses across 50 and 100, or 100 and 200-day moving averages. When are they good times to buy? And you'll see that quite often
mhm,
in a lot of your moving averages. I think moving averages are good ways to get in and get out. Are they 100% perfect? No, but they are a pretty strong indicator on when to get in and get out.
mhm.
So as you know what to look for.
Which golden cross is
Um,
something I just learned about. I actually had, I mean, I'll be honest, I had no idea what a golden cross was until this last week, and I started looking at moving averages.
mhm,
The golden cross that was referenced was like a 5 and 25 or something along those lines. Indicator from this last week where we broke through a golden cross, and I saw it, but the thing that I had looked up on Investopedia was they were saying the most common used is like 100 and 250 or something of that nature. It was like really large numbers, like 100, 200.
correct.
Yeah, so I was kind of like, okay, well, and having analyzed data, or one of the things that I know about statistical process control is that you can take data and you can modify it in a lot of different ways to meet uh, an idea or something that you're trying to support, right? You know, data, you can always kind of
Okay.
twist data a little bit to support any kind of idea, is what I'm trying to say. And
Right.
so
Oh yeah.
if you want to take two different moving averages and say, hey, look, here's a golden cross, okay, that's fine, but is that always a repeatable pattern? Does it always lead to the same thing majority of the time?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the things that I really, whenever I'm diving into a new parameter that I'm trying to understand, I try to look for patterns and see if they're repeating, or that kind of deal. So anyway, sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, 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 no. By all means, any questions you have, I'll try to elaborate on them the best that I can.
Hmm.
Okay. So you know this chart, and I have this saved. Um, lunar. Maybe you've heard of the lunar buy-in calendar, on how successful that is.
No, I
Um,
haven't.
okay, and when you get a chance, you can look it up. And it's believed that on the cycles of a full moon and a new moon, uh, I'll probably screw it up. I'd have to look it up. But one of them, whether it's a full moon, um, it's showed like statistically from like the last, I want to say like 5 or 10 years, maybe even longer.
Hmm.
It's like thousands of percent more successful that if you buy in on those full moon calendar days
Hmm.
than its counterpart, it's like thousands of percent higher had you would invest in those days. So the market is very cyclical. What runs the market? Humans run the market.
Right.
Other than the computers are pretty much controlling it, but humans are very, very predictable to a degree.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure that's something that you can look into. This chart just happens to be called lunar because at one point I probably had a lunar indicator on here. In fact, I think you can go to, let's see if I have room on this one.
I firmly believe in cyclical or cycles. Outside of the stock market, because I have an aunt who's a nurse, and she says that every time there's a full moon, that's when the ER gets inundated with people. So I know the human condition, believe it or not, does run on cycles. I mean,
Oh yeah,
throw
yeah,
your
for sure.
tinfoil hat on if you want to. I definitely believe in cycles.
Yeah. All right. So I'd have to get rid of a chart here. Maybe on this one. This one real quick. Just add physically uptime. Moon. Just type in moon phases. And a lot of these resources are accessible. Um, once you get, I think even with the free, you can get this for free, and it's kind of limited. It'll allow you like I think three indicators at one point, at one time. Um, but even like visually, just looking at this, like if I move one side sheet, let me know if you guys can see this. But just looking at this cyclically, uh, full moon, high period, new moon, low period, within a couple of days of that cycle.
Hmm.
Now it's not 100% foolproof, but they've done a study on it that during these cycles, had you bought in on like the new moon phases and got out on the full moon phases, you'd be thousands of percent more successful or
Hmm.
opportune wise. So that's just something that you can look into and read too. Um, I'm not sure where I stumbled across that. uh, could be on, it could have been on a Reddit, could have been on something that just looking, Google. There's so much access to anything. Um,
I'm certain that
you know,
a trading platform would not put lunar cycles in there if it wasn't a thing. So yeah, I hear you. That's
yeah,
really cool. And I
yeah,
and I do. I'll pull up agriculturals to take a look at AMC. Believe it or not, like you can look at. Go ahead and talk about something else, and I'll look up what it is real quick that I look at. But there is an agricultural trading um, point that does line up to indicators for AMC moving up in price. So, anyways, go ahead and I'll look it up while you're talking.
okay. So, I when I'm trading, you know, in conjunction to multiple signals or locations, where we're at patterns on the chart. Um, Between these moving averages and I have just a typical MACD chart down here. MACD is extremely on its own can be very powerful um, or misleading depending on how you look at it. Uh, this what is this? This is a ADX and DI 4. This is a nice chart where if you learn and apply it to how your chart is working, what I find is that when the blue and the green are solid on top, uh, it's just a strong indicator for upward movement, and vice versa. That if you have red and blue on the top of the chart, that's a strong indicator for downward movement. Um, this this in conjunction, if you're able to just locate these moments in the chart, they should help you to be able to identify or see setups. And we'll go over to like some really cool options is with TradingView is, let's say you're wanting to test your indicators and you're buying in and buying out. There's a really cool replay option, and it depends on your, what do I say, this candle. Uh, if this candle is this Heikiashi, you cannot use the replay option, but you can do it in line or any of these bars or candles or hollow candles options. Um, I'm not sure if you're familiar with using, I know if you primarily use Weeble, I don't think Weeble has the steps or the bars is what it's called.
They do have it,
Um,
but I don't use it very much.
okay. Um, there is some really good information too that, some extremely educated individuals that have a name associated with certain patterns, just like,
Hmm.
you know, um, if you have like an engulfing candle, you know, on the bottom side, how it pretty much signifies for strong movement upward, right? The same thing for these ledges too. If they have pretty strong meaning on how far they are in relationship to the previous one on their movement, and that's just another time that look up. I have a book here that I always refer to. I've kind of got away from this one because, like I said, I've I've stumbled across some things with the line that I feel that with AMC and GME, it's extremely prominent in some of the other ones because we're now they say we're like in max pain mode, like we're like max to the T, we're surplus in the amount of shares that speculated out there in the market. Um, I think that because of that, it it makes these patterns more like super obvious to a degree. Um, and I'll try to explain what I mean by that. So the meat of it is if we're looking at this chart and I have an overlay right here, the white is currently what we have with AMC going on. The crux of this pattern, that yellow pattern that we're seeing behind it, um, and I have a better one here because these lines, I think these are from a different time frame that I had. Let's see if I can pull it up. This is a different hour maybe. Because these lines will eventually,
On the right time interval, it'll line up.
like, yeah. So believe it or not, this yellow pattern that we're seeing here,
Hmm.
okay, this is this right here.
So you took
This
that,
is
you
it.
superimposed it, like you made it more similar to the price scaling of where we're at currently, and then kind of showed it over, what it looks like. So the pattern
Correct,
repeated.
correct. So uh, if you can see over on this left side here, this option, um, you know, trading view gives you a great option to where if you get in on a trade, just like other ones, you can set your stop loss. If you're doing this on the side, I don't have the time to be enter in on, like day in, like get in and get out day trades.
Mm-hmm.
So like I like to look at like longer setups, for at least 3 to 5 days or longer.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I like see or if it's even longer, um, a longer hold. This is something that I look at. Okay, this is where I'm at. I put it. I set my stop losses and take your medicine and move on.
Hmm.
Um, how I got to that yellow pattern, trading view has a real nice bars pattern option. All you do is you click, drag, and you can superimpose this.
Wow, I like that. That's
Okay,
so clean and
so
fast.
right, so I'm not modifying this pattern at all.
Hmm.
Okay, now I let me see if I have it here. Okay, um, because it's not 100% foolproof. Obviously, we're seeing some deviation from this.
Right.
But if I were to take the time frame from this at a shorter time rate, which let's go down to I think 10 minutes. Because 10 minutes, the 10-minute time frame correlated to let's say an hour time frame, those candles will probably match up more. And let me
Hmm.
just get rid of this. Um, so we'll take this, repeat, click a little button, drag up to here just for whatever.
Now, I want to point out real quick there before you do this, before you drag out, you're copying
Yep.
the time frame that you're copying is what time frame? That is June. It's hard for me to see the dates there, so it says May
Hmm.
24th. Is that May 24th?
It's somewhere within that ballpark because
May 24th
th-
to
yeah, and I'll get to how about this? Since we're already here, I'll kind of it's more accurate with if the chart allows you to go back, and TradingView has a tendency to like stop you.
mhm.
And I'm gonna kind of elaborate on something because I'd like an explanation of this too because um, some of these charts, I have let's say I believe that these indicators that happen throughout here are real strong indicators for movement afterwards. So like you see this little bump and then a little one right here.
Mhm. Yeah, there's 3 of them.
right, right.
Mhm,
So like a lot of times what I find is that and with my other indicators, if I can pop this up just with a quick little double click, um, you could see that my moving averages are real low. This green option is really where I want to be. This green line, to me, when I'm in this green zone with with a lot of these the longer moving trends or really close, because it's really hard. If you're in here, consider that like overbought territory.
mhm.
So when I'm looking at this, if we're not near this green option, what does this tell us from back in January? That we held strong. You remember how they said, oh, the 801, the 801 was the big deal, which
Mhm,
was like right up in here.
mhm.
I'm gonna say that that $5 range. Look how many days went. That was a battle right there
It
of
was.
just sideways movement for like 12 days.
Mhm.
And if you're looking at this, and this is when I started looking at uh, these markers, and we'll see it in GME, we'll see it in all the other ones that this downward movement uh, of lines. And I know that some of these, I've always felt like this second one in the back here is that a secondary like a game over, like last minute ditch effort that the hedges or whatever's in the algorithm, that if it gets past this, this is where we really start seeing some more movement. And you can kind of see there's tops. These are we always talk about upper levels of support or resistance,
Mhm.
or the bottom support and upper resistance. To me, these are these resistance and support lines that I believe are drawn in.
Mhm.
And the same goes for the bottom.
I just wanna
And
I'm able to get my mouse up here and point. Can you go back just 1 second? Because my mouse is
yeah,
a little bit easier to see on the screen than everybody else's, and I just want to point it out what it is that you're talking about. So right here, you see the tops of these price ranges that they were hitting uh, during trading days. So you got like 1, 2, 3, 4 days basically, and he's got at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 top points in those 4 days. So that's what he's talking about. Go ahead, keep going. I just wanted
yeah,
to point something out there because
okay.
I'm seeing it, and I just want
So
to make sure that everybody else can see it as well.
okay, and it's bigger. I'll make it bigger. Uh, Another thing too is a trader that we've noticed that when we have these really long run ups, okay, these explosive run ups, uh, you know, I can't give you numbers to what the top's going to be. All we can do is that based on previous trends, uh, we can look at the Fibonacci's, and it's amazing on how beneficial like the Fibonacci can be just by picking a lower amount and going to the highest first part. So in all essence, this one probably should have ran up, and we see some touch. It exceeded its levels
Hmm.
or brackets, whatever you want to call it. So in some instance, a lot of this is overbought. Okay, it's extremely overbought territory.
Hmm.
Or sorry, yeah, overbought. And if your indicators that you learn to start, if you stare at them enough, you're like, okay, what does this make sense? Because we saw how many of these pop off in early January, December, uh, all the um, all the meme stocks. We saw this, and we'll see. Like, there's going to be a number of patterns here that I'm going to show you the overlay. Um, when I see this second dairy or this main top out, right? Top out, top out. Our long-term moving averages is moving higher and higher, but our shorter terms are moving lower and lower in conjunction with our MACD. See, if we were to click this replay average, and we can learn as we go, like let's say we take a look back and we're staring at these other indicators that we use, right? This is how you learn as a trader. So we can walk through this. We can go step by step. This is in a 10-minute chart. This is what this is going to look like over a 10-minute period. So I'm starting to see compression. My blue line and my green line is starting to come together. Now, not in all cases, even including my MACD. We had a bounce with our MACD. It didn't fully cross, but it's starting to squeeze and compress. Now, a lot of traders, they'll take their medicine. They'll start, what do you want to say, like thinning or taking off the top. They'll start shedding, in essence.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, we do know what's going to happen there. And there's times where I'll just pick a stock and I won't look at it. I'll try my hardest not to look at what that pattern looks like. And I will literally go in and I'll scroll out as far as I can with the mouse and I'll click replay and I'll move my mouse back and forth and then with my eyes closed and I'll stop and I'll click replay and then I'll test myself to see, okay, would this be an opportune time to buy in based on my indicators? And I'll write it down.
You,
Okay.
I love what you're saying. I love exactly what you're saying because this is how you play chess against yourself. You try to not.
you have to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to
yeah,
test
yeah.
your theories and yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying.
Okay.
I love it. Keep going.
So okay. So I mean, uh, these are just like I said. These are all. This is how things that I've used to try to win our. Identify, especially these. When do we get out? When do you get out? When do you sell? I
Mm,
don't know when to sell, but I can give you some insight on when. What are some good indicators and what to look for?
mm,
All right. Now, is it 100% foolproof? No, we don't know because I could show you Tesla and how many times did it keep coming down, test and bump and up, test and bump. And that was so long term. But you know what? If I overlaid this run up and extrapolated over Tesla or some of the other ones that squeezed up, you'd be surprised on how close and how similar they are.
mm-hmm.
I mean, just for an example, I'm going to put this on here for you. So these two charts right here that I have overlaid right now, guess what they are?
If I had to guess, it's Volkswagen. Volkswagen had one of the
Okay,
most violent ups, but I'm just guessing.
okay. So this was AMC and
Oh
the other
wow.
was GME. Okay. There's a reason why these two stocks have been trading relatively similar. And, I'd like to, why did GME go so high then, so much higher than AMC? And most likely that's because the limited amount of, you know, stock available. That could be, they knew they were in a position and I think GME was the original one. They're in a far better position than
With outstanding
AMC.
shares.
Yes, with outstanding shares, the technicals. Uh, you know, if you look across the globe, GME has probably held more than AMC. Where as opposed here in U.S., I think it's like 60-40 here in the U.S. with uh, the people that favor AMC over GME. Which you can, I don't know if you've messed around with Google Trends. You can go to Google. Google Trends is real nice too, because guess what? We'll see those same weird patterns. Let's see. Let's compare GME, right? And then subregion. Where's it at? The other day I had it where it showed worldwide. You look down here, the Canadians, oh, they like the GME a little bit more than us Americans. You know,
Wow, I did not know that Google had this. Google
yeah, but
Trends.
hey, look at this pattern here.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at this pattern that we're seeing. You know, and I'm sure that if on a daily, this is over 12 months, but we'd have another indicator that's probably come down here and should GME and AMC pop off, like, if we're still holding, the shorts never covered, it's only a matter of time position wise where we're at that
Mm,
we're going to see that next level up. And I think that's where when we look at what happened with HMNY, all these other squeezes that happened back in 2018, the step one that I could show you. Because if I went and overlaid, what do you want to say? I could overlay this, so I have it on the right side. I'm going to copy this, Control C, click over here, paste it, and whatever happened. Sometimes it's wonky. Bear with me.
I see how it's overlaying though. I know where you're going with this. I see it.
But yes, this same pattern is this, the time frames pattern wise.
Hmm.
Why did HMNY step up squeeze? Excuse me. This is where we're at. I believe that. Other than the fact that I can go into the whole, my ideas that the market knows that they're to a degree price, you know, can I say screwed because of what's about to unfold, right?
Hmm.
You don't have all these rules and regulations being written in for no reason.
Hmm.
This has been happening for how long? And if myself, and I'm not going to call myself, I might have a couple wrinkles, right? If I can stumble across this and it is, if this is figured out that we start identifying these other areas, if this ape way of buying and holding, they have to protect, you know, shorting a stock is needed. Okay. There was a time where I was like, okay, through this whole ordeal, it is it's debatable. I'm sure it is debatable, but the
No,
way
I'm with you.
there's no transparency, what that we're learning on what is happening behind doors. Now, a part of me feels like this pattern, and I could show you that Astro guy. He explains it much better than me. That these movements,
Real quickly, just
if you could,
you're talking about on Reddit. There's a username, and I can't remember the full name, but it's Astro something. But you're talking about
yeah,
a Reddit user.
it's that Astro guy, and actually he has another YouTube, and he's a little crazy. If you're just looking to go there and he has a couple good videos that explains this whole ordeal. I'm not in any way looking to steal some because I have screenshots from when I traded back in Bitcoin. We could look at Bitcoin, we can look at these, but my main thing is that knowing where you're at in a trade or in a, what do you want to call it, a cycle, a pattern will help you out on when to get in a trade and knowing when to get out
Hmm.
to a degree.
Hmm.
And the same goes for using your indicators, uh, whether you're short term, long term. Uh, these trends are they're just so similar. Like the more and more that you stare at different charts, they all have uh, just such crazy comparison. It's actually pretty shocking. Um, I guess one.
So this kind of leads me
Uh,
into one of the questions I want to ask you was, in terms of a catalyst, do you find more hope in trend analysis or events like the NSCC filings or the reverse repo that skyrocketing, those type of things? What do you find more hope in, the trend analysis or the NSCC filings and the stock market look like it's going to crash and all that kind of stuff? What really kind of triggers you more? What makes you more excited? Seeing these
okay,
trends, seeing these trends doing what they're doing, I would assume.
okay. Yeah, and I'm going to show you a couple charts here. Um, and maybe we can, look into it further because I'm sure a lot of people are just staring at AMC and GME. All right, the people that are here purely for the play and they're invested in this, they're here just for AMC, GME, and that's it. Um, AMC and GME, uh, when you read what I don't know if you follow Charlie's vids.
Mhm.
Charlie has been putting out. I've been following him for as long as he's been spitting out. Uh, the, him following up in his PowerPoint presentations. Charlie, if you listen, awesome man. I chime in on your show every now and then.
Yep.
Just love the work. Uh, having access to all these guys. I work a full time job, 50 hours a week. I don't have as much time to get on. So when I get home, I spend time with wife. I stay up later. She goes to bed. I get on here, and there's some other sites that I use. If you're looking for trades, I'm not sure if you've heard of Finviz. Finviz is a really nice. What do you want to say? In order for you to screen for certain stocks, like what positions are on, all these different technicals, you can. Um, so you can do it as descriptive, fundamental, technical. There's tons of videos on YouTube of guys like having certain presets that they can use. There's easy ones signal wise. You can go to most volatile. And these are stocks that are most volatile. And then the nice thing is you click over here on the right. If I'm going too fast to say, hey, slow down a little bit, but they give you quick little charts. And I'm looking for trends and movements and certain patterns that I like to look at. This is a solid downwards movement. To me, volatility is these are quick in and outs. And most likely my indicators are the long-term moving averages. They're severely moving down, which tells me that you have to get in and get out of those trades pretty quickly. So Finviz, it's a great app or website to check out. I use that one, refer to that one quite a bit. Open Insider, maybe you've heard of that. Who's who of uh, insider trading. If big names sell, who's selling off. That is
Mhm.
a great one to look at. Even Google Trends, it's just kind of amazing. We can just look up what Tesla is looking like comparative. Tesla's pretty flat, and I'm sure that back, uh, he's been Elon's been pretty quiet, but we could probably look up like Doge, right? Doge probably had its spike early on. I had some Dogecoin. A
Mhm.
comparison to the two. Look at these two monsters. It's probably hard to compare with these two. So move, move. So yeah, Tesla was back in. They had their thing in January when they squoze, and then Doge did too when it went to what 70 something cents or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So these Google Trends can be good things that you say, okay, hey, what's trending? Especially if it's a currency. Uh, uh, I think the more tools and more weapons you have at your disposal makes you a better trader. I know, like, sometimes they say less is more, but you can get information overload unless you really just find out what works for you. Like, if I've been trading for the last 5 6 years, I would love to sit down with some of the guys that have been trading for 15 20 years and what have they seen, and I'm sure that if they had access to some of this information, other than books, uh, what they would have done with it. uh but I think back to your question or your idea is like, am I excited with the direction of the market right now with everything that's going on? I think I'm concerned for the most part. Early on, looking at these trends, I've always felt like that big, huge corrections just like on the horizon, and they keep talking about it like we're due for that next market crash, right?
Mhm.
And if s- some of these patterns, you know, the way that I look at it, this is Apple I have up here right now, and I think I might have sent this to you. I think I might even put it on Reddit. Okay. Did I get rid of it? Sorry, wrong one. Apple. I apologize. Okay. So this is our current, this is in a weekly time frame of January of 2012. Sorry, December of 2011 till now. Okay.
Okay.
And between this date, I call it like the correction time zone, even though like I think the correction only lasts for an X amount of time. But what you'll find is that that correction is its length might be different, but the pattern is like surprisingly similar. And I'll show you this right here.
Yeah, we can't see underneath the 2004 to 2007, November 2004 to 2007. We can't see the pattern in there. The green. There you go. Yeah. The other one too.
Okay.
The March ending in March 2000 as well as is kind of covering the
Okay.
line there.
So I'll explain from right here. Okay. So this right here for Apple from 2004, we had a peak. If I and I think I pretty much copied this, with
Hmm.
that draw option,
Hmm.
and I dragged it out. Just drag it out and follow it. Now we have some deviation either below or above that line,
Right.
right?
But it's forming the same exact pattern.
It is forming I mean, the top, the peak, the bottom. I mean, all these points are damn near identical, right?
Mm.
I just happen to stretch it out. Now, if I knew this and I knew that we were in a certain phase, well, shoot, I could just try to copy this and overlay it, and I'm following the same exact trend. Now, mind you, if I would have did this early on, and this is something that if I have access to, sorry, I have it locked. I gotta unlock it. I probably would have moved this. Why is it not grabbing it? There we go. Something like that. Okay. So back then, I would say that, well, this time frame was much more overbought in the beginning stages of Apple, right?
Hmm.
Something along the lines of that. We could argue that. Or maybe because this trend is so like we could overlap, maybe there's a deviation from this pattern, whether it's above or below, right? We could find, I'm sure that if we were to find what do you want to say,
The
the
average.
average of the two,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
See, I'm not a math whiz, but what I am, like, I'm really, eh, I have a thing with, I don't want to say like OCD with like details or like patterns, pattern recognition. But
ADD,
we could,
baby.
yeah,
ADD.
yeah. Hey,
I just diagnosed you and welcome to the channel.
mm, yeah. So look at where we're at, right? This time frame. Now, if I back this up and we line it up, we should be looking for this downtrend here anytime soon. This correction.
Well, I'm going to touch on that last point. Right, we'll move it back to where it was just a second ago.
Okay.
And what I notice
And this,
is the way you just lined it up right there. Most of the everything is in line except for it's starting to deviate from what it's supposed to be doing,
mhm,
unless you move it back up a little bit. Now, when you shift it upwards, you see. I would say that like everything prior to where it's currently at in price, and I'm on my screen. I'm circling it right now. Oh wait, nobody can see that. Why is my mouse not showing up now? That's weird. Oh, there it is. I had to click on the screen. The way that it's lined up now, can you move the yellow chart, the yellow portion down to where the number 4 spot is? That they're okay. That's a little low, so maybe just so that this number 4 peak is like just slightly higher than the blue line, a little bit higher, so you're matching up everything, kind of moving up, tad bit
good.
higher, like moving it just a tad bit higher. There you go. So that's kind of like an average, right? And so now things are starting to
Good.
deviate a little bit there, more than I would say anything in the past for the most part. There's a couple
Mm,
other places where it does deviate, but yeah, that's looking pretty close, pretty darn close. And so you would expect a correction in Apple's price moving forward, moving into
right.
that big dip.
Yeah.
And this is
And
just using
and
past data to see what
correct.
the future holds.
Right. Now I want to show you something. because these are the little things. Okay, I have a pattern that is damn near identical as the previous one. We're talking years. It's one thing if this were like short term, right? But this is years of an identical trend pattern analysis that we're literally following from previous generations, right? And I could go back from 97 until now, and then this little pattern right through here, right? If I go and do this, guess what? I'm gonna make it bigger for you guys because guess what? It's the same, practically the same thing. Now, if I did a like a daily time frame, we would see those same peaks and valleys. You know, I could probably copy this right now, right? Let's see if we can't move it.
Oh,
Apologize.
for some reason my screen stopped. I see you moving stuff around, but okay, Aaron picked it back up again. You were still moving stuff, and for some reason my screen, my feed wasn't going through, so it's going through now though. So you're going to basically take these two patterns that you copied from two different points in time in history and show how they look damn near the same.
Right, correct. So like I'm gonna do this, and we're gonna move this guy up here.
God damn, that's so. Excuse my French, but
So
my goodness, that is so freaking close.
you know, there's like so then we have to question, well, why is this pattern
Do me a favor.
seem to like
Move your
yeah,
point two to point one. Drag from point two. You have a number on there. Drag two and to one, and move it down a little bit. No. Keep the point two there. I'm talking about dragging
okay,
that white line where your hill is at right now at point two. Move it to point one. Just out of curiosity, I want to see what that looks like. Yeah, keep moving it back just a little bit more. Tell your peak that was at point two is at point one. A little bit more.
here.
No, a little bit further forward. A little more. A little more. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. And there. I was just
Okay.
kind of curious if it. I mean, I was just kind of looking at some of the peaks there. I was wondering if maybe it was slightly shifted
hmm
forward, but no, I think you were right the way that you had it before. I just wanted to see what it
hmm
looked like.
So get this out of the way. So we can say this and the previous year where we were at because I made this. It went bigger for some reason, right? But we know that this time frame. Oh, this was a different one. I think I tried copying it from from the Nasdaq, which I'll show you the Nasdaq here too, and we can look at the Nasdaq, the Dow, the S&P. The S&P not so much. I briefly looked at that the other day, but I'm just trying because those are like whole markets, right? Those are whole market like trends that we're moving.
Hmm.
Uh, but
That is so crazy
the
to me. I can't. I
that
mean, I can't believe how similar that looks. I mean, I asked you to move it backwards, but if you move it forwards, it tracks damn near right on with what. Yeah, that's so
right.
insane. That's just
So
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 insane.
so so yeah, we see this pullback here, and then we come up and like I said, if we were to do this in a not a because you remember this is a copy from a weekly trend.
Hmm.
If I were to do more like a daily, we'd have more pronounced pattern recognition probably throughout this. And is it going to overlay 100%? No, but it will be damn near. I mean, you're already seeing it. If you're going to say no, it's not close, whatever. I don't care who you are, then something's wrong with you. So, um, so I think if there are some math gurus out there, please message me, message Casey, uh, message me your thoughts, maybe some numbers, because if you happen to know how something's going to be, you can react to it, right? Why, unless the third time's a charm, because way back in '04 or 2000, we had the dot com correction.
Hmm.
We ran up, 2008, we had the market correction.
Yes.
Um, and then all of a sudden, well, we had COVID in 1920. That was a stall, a stall. This whole like, I don't know if a lot of people heard, but back in like September, when Trump was in office, there was a $50 billion. Um, they announced it on the reverse repos. Okay, that was hadn't happened since back in '08. So that was the first thing in September. And Charlie's vids, I think, exposed that. And then all of a sudden, in January from now until now, obviously we're in the 1 trillion now for like 7 days in a row, $1 trillion
Yep.
a day for the repo market. So all of these things, we're
They're lining up.
we're do, we're lining up. Okay, it's a matter of time. Apple, what's the big thing with computers right now? I could pull up Microsoft right now. Let's do it. Microsoft. All right. Let's look at Microsoft. Look at this pattern. I don't even got to overlay it for you because I could say from here, if I overlaid this, it's going to be pretty much just like it. 2000, uh, they were not affected in '08. So Microsoft has had that long run. I come from a background of technology. If we're having chip shortages in the automotive industry, we're going to have problems in Mac. We're going to have problems in Apple. We're going to have problems in, they're having a hard time coming out with what is it, AMD, the processors and all these devices. We're going to
Mhm.
have a setback because of, that X factor is what? What is gonna cause that now? Could it be COVID? Could it be overpopulation? Could it be global warming? Could it be all these other things that we're looking at? Could it be that the government has set something in motion to cause this correction? I don't have that answer. But what
Mhm.
I do have is enough information to say, I feel this is where we're at. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'd rather be prepared than not be prepared and be right. So if we're due to see a lot more upside, great. If not, we got, if this time frame and this is all ratio relative to if I have an Excel sheet, hold on, I might have an Excel here. So back to Apple, and I did this the other day, in 2004, 2008. Those lines that I had on here, Apple ran for about 11,600 or 1,169 days, and the correction time frame that I wrote down to where it was at bottom lasted for about, what is that, 14 and a half months. The next one lasted for 8.9 months. I believe this is what I have. Now, if we take that same applied ratio, now our technology is a little faster, maybe we're a little bit response. And I did like a ratio. I think there was an average number that I did or something. We're looking at about a 39-month correction time frame until we reach that bottom.
Mm.
Okay.
Did you happen to catch that Wolf of Wall Street interview with Trey?
Yes,
And
I
he
did.
sat there
And
and talked about like a huge market correction. He was started talking about cryptocurrency kind of
yep.
being like the way to go. And everybody was just like everybody dogged on that so hard. And I sat there and I was like, I think he's trying to tell us something. I really felt like he was trying to warn everybody that like because he basically said that like anybody can make money in a bullish market. And he goes, but there's like, a very small percentage of people can actually make money in a bear market. And he said that he saw a bear, you know, a, maybe I don't remember the time frame that he said, but he said there was a bearish market coming.
Mhm.
And he had I don't remember if he gave a time frame or not, but if he did, he made it seem, or at least the way my impression that I took away from it was, is he made it seem like there was going to be a good bearish run coming in the market in
Oh yeah,
general.
I believe it. I truly do believe that. If that is, if these trends that I'm showing you, and if these patterns are reciprocal, or unless these new rules and regulation, what do you want to say, create this containment of AMC and GME to not affect the market, it's possible that we might not see as severe of correction with the other stocks that we're thinking. Initially, that's what I thought. Initially, um, leading into this, I was like, you know, I'm just forecasting that we're due. We've been running now for what, 10, 11 years now, solid. I think that's
Hmm.
what is my what does this say? 3,543 days right now.
Hmm.
That's like 10 years, a bull run with a couple corrections. We haven't had the correction. If people thought that what happened in 019 or 19 was the correction, no, that was a stall for what happened. That indicator shows up in Apple. That indicator will show up in Microsoft. That indicator, I mean, it shows up here in the past too for some major event or something that caused it. Um, so, you know, this is the 2019, but this happened in 98 for Microsoft. And I'm sure we could probably look up what happened during that time frame that caused this. Nice thing too is that you can do a quick little check here. It's about a 20% correction,
Where have I heard that number before?
right? So what was this? 24% correction, maybe 25. So yeah, there is going to be some slight deviations from the values, and like what we've seen, they're not perfect, but these patterns for this long of a time frame to run nearly identical can be valuable to a degree position wise. I see this thing start to curl downward. That should be a good indicator. Say, hey, let's take that short position. So, um, one that I do want to show is
Wait,
the
let me ask you a quick question,
Nasdaq's.
and this is way off topic. But John wanted to throw out a question here. John Pollock, who joined the channel, said, "What do you guys think about the? This is off topic, but what do you think about the Citadel redeeming 500 million shares from Melvin Capital? Did you hear about that?"
I briefly read that.
Mhm.
You know, one is why. First off, why did they redeem $500 million from Melvin? Was it their doing? Are they teaming up because of what's about to happen? Are they? Uh, I don't know
Do
if
they need
there's
liquidity? You know, like what? You know,
right,
yeah.
right,
There's a lot of things you could take away, and without doing a really deep dive into trying to figure out if it was like just a normal standard, um, time to pay up kind of period. Who knows? But I think from my perspective, it would be hard to define what I mean, if you want me to say, like, do I feel bullish or bearish about it? I feel bullish about it, but it could very well just be something that's, um, you know, may, regardless of where we're at in this point in time, it could have been something that was going to happen irregardless. I
right,
don't think I think one of the things is here's where I'm more bullish in finding out that they've been helping Melvin for as long as they have with funding. Because that to me means that, like, say for example, you have a short position in a company, and you see a bunch of the smaller fish who are along the same ride with you start having liquidity issues, and you pump them in some money because you don't want it, because if they start folding, you're going to start folding.
right.
And so,
Yeah, for sure.
that definitely makes me bullish, knowing the fact that they're having to help support them, the little fish. And if the little fish are struggling, then that's a good thing. But anyways, moving back onto the charts, as you wanted to go ahead.
So I'm gonna copy a time frame here from, I don't know, what is this? 1996, July 1996, up until '07 or April of 2000 on the Nasdaq Composite Index, the ICIX. Okay, we're gonna move this down because I looked at this the other day.
Wow.
Because this is where I think we're at and what we're about to do.
Yeah, other than that deviation right here that I'm pointing out, um, I mean, it looks pretty dang close.
Is so the thing is like some of this is sideways movement, right? Some of it's sideways movement. Time frame could have been more like, so see this big move right here. It was more exaggerated here from COVID, but they had it. They had it here for this time frame. So this is why, yeah, we probably should go down something along the lines of this. Now, if this pattern is pretty close, uh, the Nasdaq's starting to curl to a degree. It's not having as strong as a push upward as previous, pattern that we can look at. Um, you know, could it be due to the, because this is a reflection of a lot of the other, all the, the companies and businesses throughout that are under the Nasdaq umbrella. And I if based on this, I do feel that there will be still some upward trend movement. Because if we're here,
Mhm.
considering, just say that this is you know, we could visually see that this is here. We're here. We should expect some more upward. This is overbought. Probably should get out and then expect downward correction like this for a while. uh, do I think COVID has a chance of doing that? Absolutely. With all these Delta variants that are being pushed out, just the impact that it's playing on a lot of businesses. I've traveled all over the U.S. and was a traveling technician and saw what it was doing to everyone. You know, everyone, whether it's in retail, you can go in retail right now. We talk about FTDs with the whole stocks of being failure to deliver these stocks and get them back in the right hands. Well, guess what? You go to your grocery mart, your grocery store, you go to a car and automotive store, you go to a paint store, you go to all these other locations, they are having failed to delivers too on their product and getting into those stores. And what does that mean? That is lost revenue. That is us not being able to keep as many people in the stores. We're having to borrow money out, and and extending all these expenses towards supporting individuals that can't get back into those businesses to stay open. Like my wife and I, we want to put a pool in, but that's been delayed. We tried to buy uh, or not try. We did buy Whirlpool refrigerator, and it took us 9 months till we got it. And this was
Mm.
right after COVID. So like, try to apply this in other areas of your life and be more visible. So like when you walk around, uh, Margin Call, the movie, right?
Mhm.
Seen right? Um, in the very beginning of the movie, when he figures out the pattern or the code, he's walking around and no one knows what's about to happen. Like these people are going to be put out of their homes and they have no clue what's about to happen. My parents lost their home back in '08. I saw what it did in '01 when those planes flew into the towers, and I have my own thoughts on that whole ordeal. Uh, and part of me feels orchestrated correction, controlled. We need something. Ever since they've been doing computer trading, this is just tinfoil hat gibberish. You could say, I hate. Unfortunately, a lot of lives were lost over that time frame. Put us into a war, which a lot of our servicemen, they're just now starting to come back from a lot of that, and uh, it's unfortunate to see this. It's just cyclical pattern repeating, and they
Mm,
pushed it off. They pushed it off 2000, back in 99, the dot-com bubble, they called it. And then we saw, an unfortunate attack in my lifetime on soil was, you know, the Twin Towers.
mhm,
Uh, and then, oh, wait, the housing market, right?
yeah.
So we saw this pretty strong downtrend. If try to apply those major events in these and then look back and see what other major events happened during those times. And it makes it a little less muddy. I've always felt like, get that big picture because it's real easy. And what do they say? Zoom out. Just zoom out and see where you're at.
It's funny because
Uh,
that's actually that is a question I wanted to ask you. A lot of people talk about when in doubt, zoom out. I always say pull out, and I never even think about it, but it is zoom out in terms of looking at trends. What does that mean to you? For example, do you start small and move to big intervals of time, or do you go big to small? And what range or interval of time do you find most effective?
yeah, I mean, there's that whole thing is utilizing. I would really recommend, Casey, give TradingView another try. You can always hit me up and say, hey, what are your thoughts? I'll give you whatever ideas I have, but using this replay option, um, and it's still active right now. We can get rid of this fib retracement. Um, are you in as a trader, knowing where you're at? Are you in a bearish pattern or are you in a bullish pattern? Well, if you're looking at AMC and GME, um, most individuals that are coming into the trade on that are probably in an apish pattern. I am. So I'm holding on to my money that I've had and I've been averaging up. I'm, I started out at like what, $11, 11, 12, $13 early on
Hmm.
in March, and I'm averaged up to around 29. So I've bought in up at the top side too, but I've also bought in the moments where I saw this. And when we look at this, I'm gonna stop the replay. There was a lot of opportune time where in other squeeze plays we were expecting those breakouts, right? Hey, so yeah, I bought in around these double bottoms. Those are huge indicators that when you're looking at a chart, if I'm zoomed in, this is a 10-minute chart. We don't we don't see the future. Well, no one can predict the future. But I will tell you this: that using using these the lines from before, especially the ones in the background that follow this strong trend movement, and we've already established. If you've established a floor that they call it, we bounce, we went a little past. And I always like to look too on these previous peaks. Excuse me. Um, we fly past and test, and we test it several times.
Hmm.
And look, we go past, we come back, and we test. Okay, we're good, and then we take off. To me, any traders probably putting these floors in,
Hmm.
and some of my charts, I'll have like 20 or 30 in them, 30 in them, 30
Hmm.
of them. So knowing where the stock has potential to come back to, not knowing, I would say anticipating where the stock has potential to come back to,
Hmm.
allows you to really, you know, have a good understanding on when to get in. The more you understand, and we've all probably been staring at this for months now, and
I'm gonna stop you for just 1 second. I had somebody who came into the show the other day, and they said, "Hey, when was the last time you bought some shares?" I don't remember who it was, but they asked, when was the last time you bought shares? And I was actually surprised. I was waiting. I actually do have numbers that I run in the background on certain points that I feel are good supporting points because they happen to be those lines that you're talking about. So what do you have? What do you have down there for the highest brown line that you got there? What value is that? 40 something?
42.
And what's the one below it?
This is 39.91 ish.
Yeah. So where if you could so I had a supporting line at I think it was like 29 and a quarter. If I remember correctly. It might be the next one that you would probably draw down, which is the next peak. Yeah, probably right around there somewhere, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah, right around this $30 range, 29 $30 range.
Right.
Um, Another good thing too, because I looked at this, there was a lot of I've always noticed that there's this, I call it like this first big hump and then another big hump, and then you really see the separation between these two to the larger flag.
Hmm.
All right. And if we look in on a minute chart and within these last couple of days, that same print or pattern is at like a minute. Sometimes it's not as pronounced, but it's there. And the same thing with like trying to see if I can't find it. Here we go. Something like this, right? So we have one here, one, two, a small little correction, and then that top out. So this whole leg, you know how they always say they go in like pairs of fives, one, two, correct, three, four, and then five, and that's your top.
Hmm.
So this was this whole thing.
Hmm.
Just on a, I like to look at it, like you said, when it out, zoom out. Well, you have to look at a chart and understand that on a macro and a micro like level, right? These small scales apply on these larger time frames too. So my second thought with this whole thing, I know that we're all hoping that this next push is it. Could it be the final dagger to put it into margin call city and we moon before the new year? A part of me feels that this is not me saying, or this is me basically saying, don't, like, we all came here with a job, and that's to buy and hold. I think that's been the premise, um, as an investor, to that when you get in, I got in this long term, just like with anything, because like I said, I'm a long term investor. I
Hmm.
buy and hold. I don't have the time to get in and get out. I have a couple small positions that I do. Um, this officially squeeze until next year. You know, what's one of the first things early on that our government did, that Biden did, that put into effect to get what from trading? He increased uh how your capital gains tax. I think it went from 40 to
Uh,
45 or something
which
like
is
that.
going up next year. Yeah.
Right. Why? Probably because, the government probably knows what's about to unfold. They
Yeah.
have to know the direction of the state of the economy. They have probably some of the top intel knowing what direction this is about to go. So that's a theory that I have, that this could play out, because remember the HMNY, if I can find it again, right here. Okay. If we're here, we might see another little squeeze upward that they'll allow us. Now, will it put us into that margin territory? I don't have that answer.
Yeah.
But
It sounds to me like
relatively,
you think that there's a possibility that there might actually be margin calls further down the road, not necessarily sooner than later.
yeah, I mean, because what are we sitting at? We're like, they might pull another remove the buy button again. We don't, you don't know what they might do. They might black out half the nation.
Mm.
I don't know what they might do. We don't. I mean, I've heard a lot of crazy things that might happen. We might, like them testing they're testing the internet. That they've been doing. Maybe you've heard. These are all things that, as a trader in this play, because what we've learned is that these guys have been able to finagle their money, whether it's borrowing or getting $500 million because they need liquidity to make sure they don't get margin called at a certain time frame. to make sure that they have everything in place. I
Yeah.
really feel that they are trying to put everything in place for the rules and regulation for this next, what do you want to say, movement forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that what I've shown is can be beneficial to some degree. Maybe it's just all nonsense.
No, no, I
Maybe
think it's
we'll.
definitely beneficial. Real
Okay.
quickly, I know this is something we've already kind of talked about it, but I'm going to ask the question again, and I'm going to hit the restroom while you talk about it. And I hate to walk away, but if I don't go to the bathroom now, I'm going to be hating myself later. So, but
You go right. You go right ahead.
how important to you is volume analysis in trading? And do you feel like it's a representation of outstanding share count? And actually, I kind of want to hear this. You know what? Let's just put this on pause for just a minute. I actually do want to hear your answer. So give me just 1 minute. I just go to the restroom real quick, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll go real quick too.
All right. Y'all don't be hating on us, man. We're getting older here, and that's just what happens to older guys. They can't hold it forever. So right now, which Parker and I just took restroom breaks. All right, you're back.
Okay, I am back.
So how important to you is volume analysis and trading, and do you feel like it's a representation of outstanding share count?
Mm.
I always throw one question at people that they're not expecting. I don't remember if this is the one or not,
No,
but
so when it comes to outstanding shares, um, I like referring to Ortex. I've looked at getting Ortex. I think for me, visually seeing trends, um, and once you understand that data more, can be extremely beneficial. Obviously you see on almost all my charts, I have uh, I have volume showing up in here. So volume indicators or analysis is extremely important because I guess a good example is in Apple. We noticed how high volume was, and it's starting to bleed off from the previous trends. And I'm sure the same thing happened or occurred if we were to look on different time frame scales, that our volume probably went down as well before. I guess it's not showing it as pronounced here. Um, no, I that is such a tough one probably for me to answer when it comes to.
it's okay. It's definitely something to think about when you're looking at trends. I think volume analysis, like especially if um, the ability for you to be able to take a time span from the past and link it up to where we're at currently is amazing. But if you could somehow take volume and incorporate it in there and say like, here's some volume triggers that go along with that pattern, and see if those also as well line up. I think that might all, I do believe that the amount of volume that we trade does kind of indicate in some fashion how many outstanding shares are out there. Because for example, if you move back to 127, I believe it was. Let me just pull it up here since I have it. Uh, I believe it was 127 of this year. Volume traded at 1.2 trillion shares for the day. And this is back when we were still running in the 400s, and I believe it was 400s for total amount of shares that existed. Which essentially, if you would, if you had to break that down, um, see, yeah, it's basically three times the total amount of outstanding shares were traded in one day. The total amount
Oh
of
wow.
outstanding shares in existence traded in one day. And so I think volume analysis is incredibly important into one of the things that I think is that it's makes it so important is understanding when the price does fall. Um, are we seeing people who are shedding shares? Like, are we seeing paper hands, or are we seeing something that's just price is falling because there's low volume? And so it's like a short ladder attack. So I think that's how you see the difference between a short ladder attack versus natural reduction of shares to the market. So when you draw up these patterns, if you can somehow copy and paste over those same volume predictions and see how those compare as well, that could be a good indicator as to whether or not that those movements and the prices were cyclical with manipulation of the market, or if it was people actually selling shares. Because like we said, I think that I agree with what you're saying. People are very cyclical, and I believe that the algorithms are based, or they're traded based off of how people operate or how they trade shares, and so those should be cyclical as well. So I think patterns and volume trading, it's just something to think about. It's not right or wrong. It's just a different way of looking at something. So moving on to cryptocurrency, just out of curiosity, like what do you think of the future? Because we did touch a little bit on, post squeeze and what Jordan Belfont, or I can't say his name right, but the Wolf of Wall Street, talked about as far as cryptocurrency being in the future. And I think I may have talked to you, and cryptocurrency I think is something that you have an interest in. Do you think it's the future, or are you worried at all that hedge funds use it as a pump and dump scheme?
Mm. So, I mean, I think the beauty of crypto is the fact that you we have a monetary or access to a monetary system that is essentially decentralized and not controlled by one like single entity. This idea that we determine the price or the value of something from our government, and it's kind of dictated or determined by everything else. Whereas like to have a decentralized form of currency such as our Bitcoin, um, Dogecoin, Ethereum, all the major, those are probably the big three. XRP, Ripple, they've kind of fallen by the wayside, and Bitcoin Cash has what 4 or 5 now under its Bit umbrella. I If it's regulated to a degree, I mean, you can go online now. There's Bitcoin ATMs all over. You can, I believe, sell your Bitcoin, but you cannot buy your Bitcoin from a lot of these places,
Hmm.
or vice versa. I think just going online, you can.
Like
I
AMC is
don't know
going to
if
do,
you've
they'll
looked at it
they'll
before.
they'll be accepting Bitcoin here soon.
Oh yeah, in 2018, I think that was the first wave. I think that was our first wave of truly like. I mean, that went up to what, almost $20,000. I remember being on the Webull app, and it was waking the app out I don't know if you remember trading it. It was just straight chaos on how it went, and it almost seemed like it froze the system up. Um, Bitcoin ATMs, but they, have them all over the U.S.
Hmm.
I'll show that. 'Cause that'll pretty much show my location. Okay. No, I'm from the wonderful state of Ohio. Um, but no, I think there's tremendous opportunity for Bitcoin to start being implemented at these, at businesses. They were talking about it back then. Now AMC is looking at accepting Bitcoin by the end of the year, and I'm sure GME will probably have something also with currency, be able to purchase games or, uh, you know, however they decide to implement it. What Ryan Cohen's got going on. Who doesn't love reading his tweets and whether they're encrypted or not? You know, you got to have fun with this situation that we're essentially in, and we're all hoping that something comes of it here. And if you have a second here seeing this, I pattern wise, if we follow these points where we're at, okay,
Hmm.
we're downtrend. These movements, this little wave is between here and then down, and then we come up. This is here. If I overlap here, and then this correction downward, it's a longer time span, but this is from here. And then we have a nice, wrap up to a degree.
Which is where you think we're headed.
This is anything beyond this. I think this is where we're just about right here. Here, down. I think later in the week we might start seeing, towards the end of the next week, it may pop off Monday. Everybody's talking Monday. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you, but I know that when this breaks out and has a pattern formed upward, depending on the amount of selling pressure, the idea is that the shorts should not be able to go down. Sorry, I went back to AMC, but this is where I believe that because we're squeezing and shorts can't buy back because we're not selling, what has to happen? It
Yeah.
has to go up, or it breaks that algorithmic pattern, and we see a lot of sideways trading, which won't explain. Other than I have like another theory that maybe because of this larger triangular pattern, we might be able to fit the same weird pattern, but in a smaller time frame that might drag us out more towards the end of the year.
Hmm.
So,
If you
but
zoom in on that one last portion of the yellow there, I wanted to point out one thing that I do have a little bit of a prediction on. I also am in the belief that this next week we're going to see some good price gains. But what I want to point out is on that big jump when it moves up there, there's a point where we have a turnaround. If you see it like halfway up that big line there, just right of where you're pointing right now. Yeah, it starts to go up and then
here,
right there. Yeah, right there.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that this Thursday will be that day. I think Thursday is going to be that day where we have that like turnaround. It's going to be, a bit of a drop, uh,
Mhm.
but I do think that I think this next week is primarily going to be an up week. Historically, Fridays, any Friday that we've had a green day, moving into the next Monday, we have not for this year. I don't believe, or at least I've heard, that we have not had a single green day that hasn't occurred when we've ended a Friday on a green day. So essentially, um, Monday should be up, and I think that Tuesday and Wednesday will be as well. But Thursday, I think we're going to see a little bit of a pullback. But let's talk about options because I think there's something really interesting happening in the options right now. And I don't know how much you've dived into options because I know a lot of the stuff that we were talking about is mainly charting and repeating history of patterns. So I don't know how much of the options that you follow, but right now I see a lot of back and forth talking about options on Reddit, for example. Do you think that buying options that fail to make it into the money is worth the risk to potentially cause a gamma squeeze? This is just hypothetical. Like, what do you think about what's your opinion on options? Like, do you think
You're
that
talking if we're talking if we're talking for if we're talking about AMC or GME, um,
it's okay to say
uh,
one way or the other? Nobody's going to judge you. I think
yeah, no,
every
no, no,
person
yeah,
should be entitled to their own opinion as to whether it's good or bad.
all right. I mean, we know that there's speculation that we're, you know, at worst case scenario, we're a couple $100 million over the total available float, right?
Hmm.
Something based on our last voting, we were. I remember Matt Kors said something along the lines that we were about 750 on a conservative note of
Hmm.
for available
Hmm.
based on the numbers that we took on with the voting that was done, which I chose not to, just because I was skeptical about putting any other accessible information linking up to to show your votes.
Totally understandable.
Um, uh, yeah, yeah, my 700 plus shares could have equally contributed to that. That's where I'm sitting at, and I bought some options as well, pegged for early next year. So options are smart if you get in at the right premium cost.
Mm.
If I'm gonna so obviously if you're buying something to end sooner than later, those guys right, that's how they're making their money and their premiums. Now, what you should look at is because and I'm not an expert at options. I recently just started learning options earlier this year,
Hmm.
and probably have learned more from individuals and a number of YouTube. YouTube is great because you can go on there and freaking find anything you want, I believe.
So
Uh,
true.
uh, the amount of information that you guys have access to and spend time, giving it to us viewers. I'm a viewer mostly at heart, and everything that I've provided, a majority of it has probably been from you guys, but also stuff that I've learned over the years on looking at to help me as my trading style. Everyone has their own trading style.
Hmm.
You're the short-term trader, long-term, mid-term, day trader. You know,
Swing trader.
you learn swing trader, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever you wanna, you figure your own style out.
Hmm.
And some guys are really good traders during a bear cycle. Some guys are really good traders during finding those bullish trends, or uh, it just finding that. But with options, that buying options like far out of the money, they're lottery tickets for one.
Hmm.
We all know that.
Hmm.
If you can buy 10 options at $30 premium, $300, well, you could have bought yourself what, 10 shares about right now, 8, 9 shares
Hmm. Which
that are guaranteed shares that Webull, Robinhood, our market, they're the ones, or our brokers have to basically, which kind of puzzles me. Is another thing is our brokers are, what I gather is like our middleman. That there's no check and balances of shares like verification or count, even though like Webull might be selling so many, Robinhood, TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, uh, I think freaking like Cash App even does one. Like you can buy partial shares now. The fact that there's no identification that you own a share, like people have been talking about go getting physical shares. Well, it's a lot like I think this piggybacks to Bitcoin. I really enjoy Bitcoin because if you get on and you log in from a legit place, you're getting a 64-bit hash code that is tied to your wallet that cannot be duplicated or cracked into, especially if you have a code because it's tied to your account.
Hmm.
So, and I can offload that into another location. Whereas, like, I bought this, if I buy my shares through whoever, can I, like, if I say, hey, which I did find out from my uh,
Your broker?
my I can think of my financial my broker at my bank. He said, "Yeah, you can take I could take 100 shares from my Weeble account or whatever and have it transferred to here, and I won't pay any tax on it uh, up to or the first year if I cash out or something like that." Um, so I was literally thinking about sending about 100 shares over there, and I could give them the go order on when to sell and when not to sell, and I wouldn't be. There was something about like tax-free incentive by going through them. That's something that maybe viewers might want to look at or think
Hmm.
about. Now, do I think about doing it right now because of where we're at timing wise? No. Had I known this, I thought about doing it back then because when I went, it was around in this area back in July. But then again, I thought this was a really strong bullish flag, and I think a lot of us were expecting this because of the compression to move strongly to the upside, but it didn't.
Hmm.
And it didn't because this previous pattern breakout is what it's going to look like. And I wouldn't doubt that when this reveals itself, whatever pattern it may be, if I have to bet that this is a step up like HMNY, we're going to follow that same controlled method of them either, you know, having, gathering liquidity, or they're going to get margin called and it's going to blast off into outer orbit like Houston Wade has said and explained everything, how the whole market might just topple down next to nothing.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of him or
I have
follow
not.
him, but
No.
Houston Wade, I think one of his first
Oh,
two
yes,
or
I
three
have. Yes, I
videos.
have. Yes, 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 yes. I have seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
really
he's
like his
got a
stuff.
great explanation. Yeah, he's you know anytime that you're a teacher or a professor at a university out west, you probably are pretty smart dude. Have a lot more wrinkles than me.
Yeah, me as well.
So no, you. I don't do this daily like you do. Of course, I've thought about it. I prefer doing other things, but
Well,
back to
what? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
no. Go ahead. If you got a question or
Well,
follow up.
well, I was just gonna say, what trading topics confuse you the most, and are areas that you kind of seek the most answers? Like what perplexes you the most?
Oh, I I think it's not that because I'm minoring in finance from the finance classes that I have taken for business, and it's something I really want to learn more and more about. I think it's just a lot of it is the gray area of information of we don't have all the information or access to that these large you know organizations can literally swallow. It's always that big bank take smaller bank, and people are always asking like why you know we're finding out about dark pools and how money is being traded in these waters and everything like that. And the simplest explanation is that when whales come to feast, why we don't see it that much in our movement and our volume swings. And the easiest way that I can think of it is that if retail and what we're seeing up top on price action, you know we're the top water feeders. Right, dark pool is called a reason for because it's in the depths where large quantities of money is being exchanged for small transactions. It's like when a whale does go deep, what are they feeding on? They're feeding on large amounts of small little krill or plankton, right, in the deep waters. We're not going to see that at the surface, but we know they're down there eating up and chewing up all our gains. and why it's controlled to a degree. Now, should there be more transparency in it? Should we have awareness that these individuals are doing it? Well, they're doing it. It's if we since we've essentially identified and know that they're down there doing that, what else is the SE to do other than control how much they eat? I don't know, restrict them. Then they starve, and then it's been this fine balance of, in a way, like sorting controls the market to a degree. If we didn't, how many other major shorts squeezes would have happened back then? Volkswagen was a blueprint for squeezing, but I think that there's been many squeezes on small scale at, whether it's a $100 gain or 500, 600% squeeze. Those are pretty giant squeezes, even on like a penny rate scale.
Mm,
So, terminology wise, what confuses me the most are just, I think it's just the transparency. I think everything that I've learned is that you get into a market, and then next thing you know, and maybe this is just my early age learning on when I was first entering in trading, is the difficulty knowing when to get in and get out of a trade. But I've learned there are a lot of things that I can look for and stay out of and take my medicine. These double bottoms are good, solid moves, and you know you don't see them as often.
mm,
Like, people don't know when to get in, and are we on a bearish trend? And there are some ugly time periods. People just got to understand some stocks are hotter than others. Use your screeners. Uh, like I said, I don't have as much time as I'd like
mm.
to dig into the stock market as I do, but I think I know enough to be dangerous in my own sense to make money. I think I'm at a little over 240% gains this year, which
That's
I'm sure
beautiful.
people are high. Yeah, I can't complain. Um,
I can't even imagine. Like, I mean, I used to remember telling people that, if they had a really good year, that they'd be up 25%. That's just back in the early 2000s, until we had 9/11 happen, and then it was just kind of like I even just walked away from trading altogether because I watched my net value decrease by more than half, and I just was so frustrated that I just decided to just leave my money invested and just walk away, and then just not look at it for many, many years. And it actually ended
yeah,
up being a pretty good strategy for me at the time. However, I did when it did become a bullish market again. I missed the upswing on the most potential max gains that I could possibly get. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of lessons to be learned. But the transparency is definitely poor, and that's not really a frustration that you can control, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. It's, I mean, we have to accept it as it is, I guess, to a degree, and hopefully, Mr. Gensler that's in there, we see that changes are happening.
Hmm.
It will take time. Uh, we are trying, either they're trying to protect their control motive, or they're trying to make it fair to retail and have a fairer, freer market, because what's happening here in the US is not just happening in the US. This is globally. They've been making a lot of these changes everywhere else too. It's, if they what do you want to say, screw us over during this play, not to say no one has to pay us money, but we know that based on certain numbers and figures, they haven't paid. And if they finagle their way out and we hold on to our stocks for months or years and gets into a legal battle, I think because there's a lot of big players in this. We know that BlackRock's in this with millions of shares, and they keep doubling their position or adding to their position. And we're seeing other states and organizations add to their, hop on board, and Jamie and AMC. And we're seeing that how they're able to hide or manipulate, borrowing shorts through the EFT, other EFT stocks that happen to carry AMC. So like, I think I've learned the most about the market following these meme stocks in the last 6 months since March than I have in the previous, 4 or 5 years of trading,
Yeah,
which
I
is just
I have to agree.
yeah, yeah, like tenfold. So like, I think that when this does happen and it does, change, we probably will see a different market and how things recover when no one knows how this is going to play out to a degree. Do I think that the the trends that I've kind of stumbled across, if they are a cyclical system that is in place that they're looking to change because of these new rules that apes have found out or will use in the future, that to put these hedge funds, or if they're not protected, you know, there are other patterns that I'm sure that once people see how this is done or they are using it, you can really either a rinse and repeat, or or just make your gains and move on. You probably
Hmm.
make a really healthy living moving forward. But I'm sure they use the same thing too, and that's why they have their billions of dollars and they're making their money. So
Well, so after this is all said and done, what are your plans after the MOASS?
uh, what are my plans? Uh, pay Uncle Sam his fair share, and then you know probably a good chunk will be donated to the community. My wife and I, we try to help out the community as much as possible, local shelters, and look at possibly putting up other, what do I want to say, scholarships, something along the lines of just helping out individuals that are having those hard times. I think that's extremely important. And then family, and uh, pay off the house, even though it's about almost halfway there, and any
The, s-
other
the
residual
student
debt.
the student loans.
That's, you know what? I, I had no, actually I'm able to go to college for free because my wife works at a university.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful.
yeah, that's part of the reason why I am taking advantage of this opportunity to get a degree
That's
and
awesome.
you know better myself. And if anybody has an opportunity to better themselves, uh, obviously do it. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
So
Well, do you
so
have any last thoughts or comments that you want to make to the viewers in regards to everything that we've talked about today? And throw up your chart on there. Let's finish with your chart showing up on there one more time. I want everybody to see that last chart of where you have the movement of AMC projected as to where what you think it's going to be moving to. I think that's a really cool chart to see. And then closing on that, what last comments would you want to make to everybody who watches this?
yeah, I just want to say that like a lot of these charts are relative in their patterns, and that if we can apply these same patterns or principles to future ones, they are good barometers on knowing where you're at relative to them. Now, are the numbers the same or identical? No, but the patterns are pretty similar, and it's not too hard to figure out where we're at. I mean, other than moving lines, but there's reasons why they're in the positions they are, but the patterns are extremely helpful. And we know why AMC looks the way it looks because they're trying their hardest to get out of this position at the cheapest rate possible.
Mm,
Because once it does go up, we know that they're in the millions to billions of dollars, maybe trillions. We've heard, if we know there's an opportunity to just hold and hold and hold, and if you shed an X amount of shares, know that that probably does affect the overall how high we go. Um, but yeah, just
Buy and hold.
buy buy and hold, baby. That's it. Uh, if there's any questions that anyone has, wish I had that chart up. I don't know what I did with it. Maybe it's on this one. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh no, it's okay.
Yeah,
I
no,
think that's it.
I
Oh, it looks like it anyways.
I got too many screens open. No, I think with our time frames, what you said, possibly later towards the end of this week. Um, I know on one of the DDs I put like early September,
Hmm.
and I've always felt this stock to be a little bit laggy to what I think it might be because they've drawn this out. We know they've drawn this out. I mean, just look at it. This is a long time frame. This is June, right? If we take this pattern of June or July, in essence, it is practically this pattern as well. But this took from January until May, and then from May until now, which May we have June, July, August,
It's a
end of
much
August.
shorter period
So
of time.
it's a much shorter period of time, but we know that things are starting to compress because of the number of people entering in. The shorts are trying to exit their position. We know that. We've established a strong bottom. I think there was some minor sell off here,
Oh yeah.
and it did drop down. But if we do have a retest later in the week because of them getting out, we know. But I've always noticed too this little move, touch, come down. We might see some strong upward movement, like you said. We might see it early on. I didn't really look into options to see how much influence options is going to do, Monday or Tuesday, because usually we don't see. Sometimes we see that movement Monday, and the whole anniversary of last time was on a Monday.
I actually just switched to the stats page showing the options incoming for the open interest options going into this next week. The most volume, I'm not looking really far down the list, but on the call side is $40 with 14,249 options for the calls, and then 10,000 options for the puts at 25. So there's actually a really wide gap between the two options, and the max amount of pain was $35 last week. Going into this week is at $34, so it's actually dropped down a buck. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if you know this or not, but the German market went ahead and closed. Um, they went ahead and closed their orders. I had it on my screen here. Hold on one second. I'll look it up. Oh yeah, $35.44. I mean that their actual euro amount that they closed at was 30.3 for the Saturday trading. I think it's either Saturday or Sunday. I forget which day it is that they trade on. But they close at 30.3, which is going to send us up in pre-market hours. Like when it first opens up on Monday, we're going to see $35.44, which puts us a dollar and almost $1.50 over that max pain on options. So it's looking really, really beautiful heading into this next week. I really feel like we're going to at least, at the very least, start off strong. Um, but yeah, I mean, thanks for coming on and talking about these trends and how cyclical they are and how repeating that they are. It's so fascinating to me to see um, how history just repeats itself when it comes to patterns. And I don't think that people appreciate that enough. And so it's funny to me because, there were people, I don't know if you've been reading some of the Reddit posts, but there's actually some people out there that are starting to sound pretty darn panicked about the future of AMC. And I laugh because I go like, guys, the time frame that we were stagnant for and dropping in price from the January to the June was 5 months, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
it's like if you're if you can't hold out another 5 months to see this jump into the ranges you just kind of posted up there like right now, which is in the $400 range. It's like, how are you going to survive some of the dips when we that are along the way? because that's really what's happening. That's really, in all honesty, these are stages of diamond hands forming, right? People are forming their diamond hands as we make it through each one of these cycles. And so you had mentioned that you kind of came in at the high $20 range, and so when you got up to that 70 some dollars and it's dropped all the way, retracted all the way down to where you kind of almost got in at, that was a good test for you, and so now you've got these diamond hands that are going to allow you to make it further down the line um, see some of these really big dips. Not, I mean, this is not a dip. In my opinion, seeing it go from 70 down to high 20s is not that bad compared to what we'll see. Just based off the GME modeling that I've done, um, watching it go from 150 bucks down to 60, that's a drop, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That
yeah, for sure.
hurts. That hurts. you, you sit there and you look at that and you're like, holy crap, man! I just lost 2/3 of all my money. That's going to really test people. Those are the periods of time. And when you see those kind of cycles happening in the past on other stocks and you can repeat that just like you showed us, somebody can take using TradingView and the tools that you just showed and they can actually plot out. I personally believe they can plot out what's going to happen with the squeeze. Now, it does, I have to say that I think that every squeeze is a little bit different because there may be some parameters that are kind of that throw it off slightly. But I do think that there are some patterns that can be found. And if you look for those patterns, you can identify when you're on the backside of the squeeze, which is really kind of cool.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And
It eliminates that.
AMC Gme,
Go ahead.
yeah, AMC and Gme with everything. This pattern will probably be different than what we've seen in the past. I mean, we're already seeing this is different, and should this squeeze to the numbers that why we're in this is like right now, 30, $40 we can look at. Like during this market, my wife and I, we go to the movies as much as we can, and we know that because of COVID that not as many people are going in these movie theaters. People are not showing up. So uh metrics wise, to some degree they're saying, oh, it's not a good stock to buy in. you know there are a lot of other companies too that we could say that about, that I could argue with, that the media is trying to push that we shouldn't be buying in, but we are.
Hmm.
you know I'm sure Tesla's having their issues.
Hmm.
I'm sure Ford Motor Company and GM and all these automotive having their issues, but they're still moving upward. They're still doing solid. So like the amount of FUD that has been thrown at these stocks, probably more AMC than anything, um, should be, red flags, fuel to the fire, whatever you want to call it, depending on what side of the fence you are. Uh, I'm just excited to see how this plays out. If this proves my predictions wrong, you know what? I learn from it. We learn from it and we move on. But I really feel that if we look at things on a macro scale, you know, this will, these are those the humps, hump, and then the top out. Same thing if I were to do. I'm sorry, I get distracted a little easily.
It's quite all right. I get it.
Look at Fibonacci here. Tells us to come up here, and we blew past this. Uh, like will it follow this? Yeah, probably, because if I set this ratio wise, it should continue in the same pattern. That is if we hold, we don't sell. And obviously this will deviate a little bit from the pattern depending on the amount of selling pressure, people selling on the way up that aren't diamond handing. But if you know that we don't sell, this has much greater potential. We all know that. So it's all about just riding that wave up, have some numbers in mind, and when margins do happen, and if AMC gets into the thousands or 10,000s or 100,000s, like they said, that you really don't know. when we get there, we get there. But as of right now, we know it's $34 and some change or something.
Yeah. Well, I'm
uh,
really looking
you know,
forward to this next week.
yeah, yeah. So my, I think every year more and more it keeps building up, building up. Volume, you know, the volume's been back and forth, right? We had a period where volume was really low, and sometimes that low volume, they always say, well, you need volume for that squeeze or movement upward, and sometimes you really don't need that, right? Sometimes that volume, I mean, volume uptick does help. I mean, look at down here, it
Hmm.
does help.
Hmm.
But then when it bleeds off, if volume wasn't there, what happened? What caused this? Why? What causes? Was this failure to delivers? I mean, we know volume increases, but something perpetuated that movement. Something caused these, and I think a lot of it correlates to those FTDs on not being able to deliver. Whether it's social media and the number of people coming on and buying. So yeah, volume does help out to a degree. Um,
Yeah.
there's I guess knowing how it all truly works and moves a stock. I don't want to say it's a gray area, but I think no one knows exactly. I'd love to sit down with a professional financial advisor and pick their brain.
Well, I am going to wrap this up with a quote. And being a business leader yourself in business management and the background that you have, this is by Amit Ray uh, from Mindfulness Meditation for Corporate Leadership and Management. Said that great leaders know that under the turmoil of chaos and change, there's a beauty of patterns and designs. And I think that quite elegantly sums up you as a person and what you've seen and found to be true. So I think I see a long successful future for you in your pattern charting.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time that you allowed me to come on here and put out there what I see, what I have in mind, and if anybody comes across this and it makes sense to them or they can elaborate on it more, please reach out to me. Please reach out to Casey. I'm all for if you're like, hey, look at this stock. What are your thoughts? I'm all for it and developing a community and people that look at certain patterns and ideas because just referring to other things, it's extremely beneficial. Um, no, I really appreciate you allowing me to come on here and do this.
Parker, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you on Monday tomorrow morning, bright and early, and I'm looking forward to it. Take care.